What's up, fellow lords of gaming, and welcome to a very new episode of Marvel's Avengers. I thought today would be an appropriate time to bring up this game, mostly from a perspective of what's going on, what's happening. Currently, the game, Square Enix decided that they were going to release a blog post detailing and discussing some of the 2022 game updates and things that they were going. Inside the blog post, they mentioned games like Babylon's 4, Life is Strange Remastered, and even Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. Forspoken, even talking about games like Star Ocean. Recently, Square Enix had a lot of success with the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise. If you've played that game, I did some streaming of the game, but unfortunately, due to DCMA stuff like that, I really couldn't continue without, me not enjoying the game, and that's not something I want to do because a large part of this revolves around me enjoying the game. Oddly missing from the 2022 expansions, updates, and things like that was Marvel's Avengers. Was this omission by not having anything to talk about, or was this a omission because Square Enix has given up on the game is what's being discussed. So a large part of this conversation is relying upon the performance. Crystal Dynamics clearly was not the team to handle this game. Depending on how you feel about it, you might see that the game is obviously in a decline. It's definitely gotten some resurgence since it since the War for Wakanda expansion. There's way easier time of finding space for the game. The question is, how much is this game generating from its current model, where they're basically selling skins, especially since they finally seem to have understood the player base and understanding and wanting MCU skins. Meaning, one of the big conversations around the game has been largely factored on that the game doesn't see the developers didn't understand the community, and the skins that they were creating for the characters, the things that they were doing, were too different from what we as MCU fans played. Meaning, we're missing out on some skins for MCU level movies and stuff like that. For instance, we've recently got Hawkeye Kate Bishop skin from the Hawkeye series. We got the Hawkeye MCU skin before that, but one of the things the players immediately start complaining about is a real accuracy to those. We want to play as the characters that we're seeing on screen. That's the primary engine for how we the players are experiencing this world right now, either through comic books or through the MCU television shows and movies. And one of the things that we have to consider is that they missed the mark clearly in the beginning, and the game has not been without its faults in terms of player feedback. So for instance, the very recent conversation has existed around the fact that the characters finally started feeling powerful because of a damage buff, as well as a defense buff that now Crystal Dynamics developers are planning on nerfing. Even more concerning is the fact that Crystal Dynamics is nerfing these things. You have to start to take a look at their response to players who were concerned with these nerfs and saying, this is not what we want. Well, it's a very, the attitude from a lot of developers is a very, oh well, do as do what I say, not as I do kind of mentality, where they're not addressing players with respect, and not addressing players with respect to how we want the game to play, especially when a game is in low numbers like this. I mean, you don't have the Steam version of the game obviously sporting a great deal of players. That's just the truth of the matter. I can't argue with that. Now, it's definitely got more players than Marvel Future Revolution, I can tell you, probably than that much. But the question is, where does the game go from here? Is this an omission? We know that we had data mined. At least we know that we're most likely getting a character in She-Hulk. There's also the mystery character that a lot of people are speculating could be Yelena Belova or Thor Jane Foster. Now, with addition of every character, especially if they go more accurate to, like, go more accurate to the MCU universe and the comic books, they probably stand better chances at developing the games further and bringing fans, which could see renewed interest by, you know, heads at Crystal Dynamics. Don't forget as well, Square Enix is also one of those game developers that, you know, they are willing to take a chance on games. Final Fantasy 14 is one of those games that they infamously, you know, had every reason to cancel because it was pretty damn trash, and they stuck with it and they made something of the game in general. So I wouldn't hold my breath to say that this is the last we've seen, but could this be the last year that we see Marvel's Avengers? Could this be the beginning of the end? Will we get to the Kree invasion and beyond is a question many players have. And to be honest with you, playing this game since its release and inception, it's a game that, you know, is really weird because I enjoy the story in the game. The thing that I dislike is literally Crystal Dynamics' development team's unwillingness to listen to player feedback and actually implement that player feedback with respect to the characters, the world, and what we are actually trying to do in terms of playing. The game is a lot of fun. I'll say this much for it. The game is a lot of fun in terms of, you know, its cycle elements, but at the core, it is still a looter shooter in that regard that doesn't, you know, sit well in terms of loot. I've played the raid, I've played the OLTs, and I have my character, you know, all but spun up to complete those. However, the sad truth about it is, in terms of playing the game, you really don't feel rewarded for the cycle that you're going through. If you play squad, if you play the raid, you feel like you're getting somewhat of lackluster rewards, so you don't really feel like you want to play it. At one point, the game found its way in a broken state where it was players could repeat the raid a numerous amount of times, and instead of continuing on that path because players were happy and actually playing the game, the decision was made by Crystal Dynamics to forego that, and they immediately fixed it, which was, you know, problematic, because what it should have shown to them is that people were willing to play the game. They were willing to jump in and log hours. It just, they had to have it their way. We need this time gate to sell marketplace items. I don't know what's happened in the community, the gaming sphere, but it seems like that is a across the board thing. There seems to be this for lack of a better word, arrogance to not understand development teams and understand what it is that players want, and specifically, you know, giving the players the things that they're enjoying instead of, you know, trying to give them things behind a pay cycle. I talk about this constantly with Marvel Future Revolution, where a lot of things, you know, recently, like I posted a video the other day where we're literally talking about that. Everything is pay cycled, you know, everything that you want is behind a pay cycle. It's a paywall model. Everything behind this game is a paywall model. We understand that players have to pay something to invest in the game, especially if you expect this game to go 3, 4 years, 5 years into the future. You want Destiny level games, you want, you know, Call of Duty level games with, you know, revenue. Everybody wants to turn to live service because obviously developers need to be paid as well, but it's a symbiotic relationship. You have to make a pay cycle that agrees with the player base, so that way we invest in a game the way we want to because we're enjoying the gameplay. If you're just going to continually push something down players' throats, it's never going to work. And unfortunately, that's the case with a lot of games in development right now. Now, whether this is a, you know, problem because of the cycles of you know, development for in the C19 age, you know, it's still yet to show, because there's been a lot of successful games. Like Guardians of the Galaxy was widely successful and hugely popular. I had a lot of fun playing it. So seeing that, you know, you had teams that were able to develop an insulated story, which is what Crystal Dynamics really wanted to do. They pretty much all got forced down their throats to, you know, deliver on a live service game that they were not prepared to do. It's clear the game is still in working, but it's a lot of fun. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, you know, a lot of people will complain about Marvel's Avengers for various reasons, and they're justly so, but the game is a lot of fun. You know, playing the characters, you definitely feel the power of playing a character like Thor. You definitely feel the power of playing a character like Hawkeye. The implementation of story design and you know, expansions and stuff like that has been really great. It's just that, you know, we want more. Now, Whether or not they give up on this is probably going to be largely dependent too on some of the other games that are recently announced. You know, there's a Marvel MMO that is being developed by the same team that brought, you know, DCU to us, and that game's been around for 10 years. Now, I'm not going to write Marvel's Avengers off just yet, mostly because I feel like the game still has it still has life in it. It still has possibilities. It's going to be largely dependent though on whether or not the development team wants to stick with the life of that game. It's weird, man, like, you know, especially when you come to Marvel properties in general, because I think there's such a big fan base there. It's just that a lot of people are abusing the fan bases, and that's the best that I could say about that, right? Is that people are they're trying more to take advantage of the good faith that, you know, the Marvel IP has, because it almost has an installed player base, you know, from people who generally love the content. I wish developers would just get on board with understanding that stuff, you know. I mean, Outriders is getting talked about in that same blog post, right? Outriders is pretty much a done game. Like, I mean, in terms of like player base and total number of players, I don't even think Outriders has as many players as Marvel's Avengers, but you see them talking about that. But that was a pre-designed plan. I don't think that Marvel Avengers is necessarily dead. I don't think that we're going to be losing out on the game, but, you know, we're definitely in that stage of talk for the game, because, you know, player count numbers have dropped significantly from launch. You know, the community is not as resolved to stick around and deal with the kind of conversations that, you know, developers are having with them in terms of, you know, discussions about, you know, whether or not the game is where we want it. Is the game in as bad a state as some people are saying it, comparing it to its launch? I don't believe so. I don't believe that to be true in the slightest regards. But, you know, who am I to say? Who am I to say? You know, like, I guess that's a matter of opinion and thought. What am I missing? Who here am I missing now? Oh, there we go. Somebody got it. Cool. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. Have you been playing Marvel's Avengers? If so, are you enjoying it? Are you nervous about where the game may go, or is 2 years, you know, enough? Did we get the most enjoyment that we're gonna get out of this game that it warranted, especially for the current cycle and model that it's currently adapted? Or would you like to see more here? Were you excited to see the Marvel's the Kree expansion story finally be told? I was looking forward to that quite a bit. We haven't had that story in a game in a long time, so it would be nice to see that. Let me know in the comment section. All right, guys, until next time, peace.
research down the digital drain.
She'll doubtless come up with a plan C and D. In the meantime, I'm pulling my people back. I suggest you do the same, Doctor.
Will do.
I never doubted that together we could defeat AIM here today.
AIM's down a lot of research and one giant scary robot thanks to you.
Today was an important victory. But the war is far from over.
All the more reason to savor our successes, Captain.
True, old friend.